Then let's officially start. Hello again, and welcome to today's webinar, EPR without displacement, strategies for a transition in the just transition in the circular economy. My name is Dorothee Bürkle. I'm a policy advisor in the GIZ project EU-Philippine Green Economy Partnership, and also active as a core group member of the Global Action Partnership for Extended Producer Responsibility. I have the honor of moderating this first webinar of our series, Cooperation with the Informal Sector, Key Pillar to Successful EPR Implementation. At the GAP, we have often observed that the significance of the informal sector as a stakeholder in the EPR systems is repeatedly emphasized. However, we rarely see representatives of informal sector workers actually involved in the introduction or implementation of such systems. And with this webinar series, we would therefore like to shed a little bit light on how social inclusion can be strengthened within EPR systems. Another disclaimer, please note that the views and options expressed in these webinars do not necessarily reflect the positions of the core partners of the GAP for EPR, the Prevent Waste Alliance members, or the official policy positions of the international organizations and governments involved. And nevertheless, I'm delighted that we can start our series with the Yunus Environmental Hub. Their work focuses on training and empowering informal waste workers, and by doing so, bridging a gap between informal livelihoods and formal EPR frameworks. And I'm particularly happy to announce today's speaker, Christina Jäger. Christina is co-founder and managing director of the Yunus Environmental Hub, where she advances inclusive circular economy and social business solutions globally. She is a recognized expert, serving as co-chair of the Prevent Waste Alliance Plastic Group, and she advises governments, businesses, and international initiatives on sustainable waste management and social inclusion. Today, she will share her expertise on integrating informal waste pickers into EPR systems. If you have any questions, please, we have plenty of time for discussion after Christina's input. Please feel free to already post them in our chat. And this is enough talking from my side. Christina, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction and the invitation. And hi, welcome everyone. Allow me to share my presentation. Can you confirm that it's visible? Yes, okay, perfect. Yeah, so a few words about ourselves. As Dorothy mentioned, I'm leading Yunus Environment Hub, which is a global social business network with the vision to create a world of 3 zeros, zero poverty, zero unemployment, and zero net carbon emission, a vision that our co-founder and chairman, Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Professor Mohamed Yunus, has called out. And how do we do this at Yunus Environment Hub? How do we advance this? We work on designing and implementing social business-based solutions that address environmental and social challenges by tackling the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. And our work is built on 4 different pillars. The first pillar is our social business incubators and accelerators. So we're providing capacity building and financial assistance to social businesses, helping them with growing and scaling their ventures. We provide education and training, as well as consulting and research services, also not only to social business entrepreneurs, but also to public and private sector organizations. On the consulting and research topic, we have done a lot of work around the just transition topic in the context of the global plastics treaty negotiations that have been going on. And the last pillar is venture building. And on the next slide, you can see a bit of our impact numbers those are the numbers as of 2024. Our new impact report for last year is yet to be launched. But overall, we have implemented around 40 different projects across 43 countries, trained more than 2,000 social business entrepreneurs, where 66% were women, and have incubated and accelerated around 300 social businesses. When we are talking about EPR and the informal sector, I think I would like to start by looking at this tool sort of from a generic level of seeing it as a tool that I think has been proven to be a successful tool to address waste collection and recycling. So a tool that will serve to address environmental issues. But when we are looking at countries that in where the collection of waste is largely dependent on informal sectors, the introduction of an EPR system can bear very high risks of social trade-offs if the EPR system is not designed in an exclusive way. And so what we need to bear in mind is that while we have the good intentions of introducing EPR to solve plastic pollution, we might be progressing on certain SDG related to circular economy, relating to building responsible consumption and production patterns and demonstrating climate action, where at the same time we might have unintended negative consequences on poverty-related SDGs, on employment SDG, and also on gender equality, since the informal sector and gender are two intertwined topics. So what are the exact risks? Without an inclusive design, EPR can disrupt and displace informal livelihoods. It can exclude particularly women and vulnerable workers, and undermine social and economic resilience in those specific places. And what I often like to say is that just transition should not be seen as an obligation, but rather as an opportunity where we can combine environmental and socio-economic objectives together and use it as a way to make investments towards an inclusive EPR system where we can strengthen environmental performance and social cohesion, and see it as an opportunity for creating decent job opportunities for people that are working in an informal way, and in that support equitable and sustainable development. If we're looking at the structural characteristics of the informal waste sector and the gender topic that I mentioned, the informal sector is highly heterogeneous. It cannot be seen as a group, but it is so diverse, not only depending on different countries, but within the constitution of itself in any type of context. There's limited legal recognition and very low production standards. Their work is decentralized and flexible. Income is often linked to the material that is being collected and the market prices that exist rather than stable wages. And it often fills the gaps in municipal waste systems operating at different levels from household, streets, small aggregation levels, or on dump sites or proper landfills. And gender is structurally embedded because women are central to informal recovery, to the type of work due to the barriers that women face in general to formal employment, and also the need for flexible work arrangements. So these characteristics position gender inclusion really as a system feature, not necessarily as an add-on. And I want to give a very concrete example that we are currently witnessing of what can happen in terms of negative social consequences when an EPR system is being introduced. And I have here some like a recent news article coming from the city of Pune in India, where Pune Municipal Corporation is currently planning or transitioning to replace Swatch, which is a women's cooperative that have a door-to-door segregated collection system with a centralized drug-based model. And Swatch is one of the oldest waste cooperatives, I think more than 25-year-old, that operate on a women-led and pushcart-based system that delivers very high recycling rates and material quality. The households, people from the households need to come out when they come with the pushcarts, and it's the household who then put the different segregated waste streams into the bins of the pushcarts of those ladies, where there's also direct interaction between households and the collectors, and where corrective measures can be taken if something is not properly sorted. So this has been working very well for many, many years, and providing two different income streams for the women. They earn a fee for the collection service, but also revenue through the sales of the recyclables. And the new model shifts now towards a mixed waste collection, moving the sorting to downstream transfer stations, since the trucks will come in and collect everything together, and then the separation is being intended to be done at a later stage. Here you can also see a picture of how this looks like, how the Swatch system and their push carts look like. So we see that with this change will lead to both a loss of the material value, since the sorting quality will decrease, leading to a reduced recycling performance and limited, rather male-dominated employment opportunities. Yeah, the truck driving, also lifting heavy bins to the trucks themselves, all of these are bare limitations for those women being employed. And in total, it's around 3,500 predominantly female workers that are at risk of losing both their service income and livelihood. So this case demonstrates that there's really an urgent need for EPR to have a just transition plan in place that preserves livelihoods and also effective waste systems. So how can a just transition strategy, how can these plans look like? I think what's very important to say is that just transition approach acknowledges that there is no single pathway to inclusion. Different system designs require different mechanisms to protect livelihoods. And it is important to do this very context specific. And I'm going to be talking about 3 inclusion strategies that can be grouped into 3 broader perspectives. And again, want to mention that it's not going to work by saying this approach works for this place, implement it, and we are good. It's often also an overlap or a combination of several, or having a transition plan across the different phases while such a transition is happening, as also the introduction of a drug-based model does not happen from one day to the other. It's also starting from one neighborhood to the next ones. So it's very important to sort of keep that in mind. And as a general level, also to keep in mind that the best way on designing a just transition approach is including the voices themselves that are being affected, and to better understand also what those people want to do and how they want to be included. But let's go over those three approaches briefly. The first approach is to look at how informal waste workers can be integrated directly into the newly established or restructured waste management system as part of the broader system reform. Waste workers transition from their informal collection into formal employment relationships, becoming employees within the operational workforce of the new system or of the municipality directly, and have, of course, clearly defined roles, access to labor protection and social security mechanisms, such as healthcare or paid leave. And this approach can provide income stability and formal recognition. It seems like this would be the ideal approach, but of course, it has limitations. It requires careful design to avoid excluding workers who rely on flexibility or cannot meet formal employment requirements. If you're thinking back of the Pune examples, again, like the limitations are, of course, the number of jobs that can be provided in a new system. From 3,500, this new system will be less labor intensive. So it will not be able to absorb all of them. And then not all of them might fulfill those requirements, as I mentioned earlier, with, truck driver license or lifting of heavy waste bins. If you're looking at the second approach, this approach focuses on professionalization and basic formalization, which can be done in the form of a cooperative, but it's not a must. In this approach, we would be looking at informal organized groups. Sometimes they already have some sort of organization in a community-based model, or a very basic business setup, but without a fully formal business license, let's say. And here the approach would be to support, to help register those groups as micro businesses that are run by people that have been engaged in waste collection, maybe who had already also done some first level of aggregation or sorting work, and that can then be recognized as service providers or contractors within the formal waste system, depending on the system or the stakeholders that are active to supply other bigger waste management companies, or maybe receive a direct contract within the EPR system. And in this approach, what it requires is to support those groups with the registration processes, but also with skills development related to the business management. Everything that is related to having some basic business administration processes and operations in place. And then in this approach, individual waste collectors can have a contractual relationship with this micro business to ensure their income stability while they are still remaining also in their flexible setup. So that would be the second approach. And then the third approach is creating alternative livelihoods and providing transition support during the system change or shutdown design, let's say when a landfill or a dump site close. So as I mentioned before, it might not be possible to absorb everyone in the existing waste system, in the new waste system. So an alternative is to really see and look how other livelihood opportunities can be created through reskilling and placing them in similar activities that could be around sorting or cleaning or urban services or other green jobs that can be provided in this area. What is important here is to mention that reskilling and also training, especially if it's more formal trainings that require a longer time period, that is necessary to provide them with temporary income guarantees. Otherwise, they will not accept or join those training and reskilling programs and will be forced to do other informal work for income generation. Because without any income, they are not able to sustain themselves and their families. So this is one aspect that is an option, seeing through reskilling to place them in other sectors. Another option is our microcredit schemes that can support informal workers, women as men, to set up micro businesses. Again, this could be to the liking where they set up, they create business ideas that are being supported with the microloans as well as capacity building. Such schemes have been developed and rolled out in basically almost all countries. So this would be another option. Another one is to increase financial and non-financial support to social businesses that are working in the circular economy. So this could be in sectors related to reuse, repair, refurbishment business models, because social businesses are offering inclusive employment opportunities. And if they're supported and if their businesses are being supported to grow, further jobs in these companies can be created and offered to previously informal sector workers. So those are some ideas, some suggestions for alternative livelihoods creation. Here again, very important to have to involve them into the design and really take into account where they see themselves and what they want to do. Finally, I want to give a brief overview of the informal sector trainings and the work that we are doing at Yunus Environment Hub, besides the incubation and acceleration work for social businesses, which is of course like our main focus, but I'm not addressing this specifically since we want to talk or have the focus on the informal sector themselves. We have 3 different types of trainings. The first one is occupational health, safety, and environmental protection trainings with the objectives to raise awareness and provide access to appropriate safety equipment, to improve working conditions, and to also reduce negative environmental impacts that can come especially from collection or sorting sites. The objective is in the mid and long term to see a behavioral change in operations and processes across the waste management sector, and really promote safe and decent work aligned with the just transition principles. The second type of training is related to digital literacy and data tracking, with the objective to strengthen local waste collection systems and informal sector networks through the adoption of digital solutions, which can be mobile apps or blockchain-based technologies, to improve data collection, the management, transparency, to enhance collection efficiency, but also to support evidence-based decision-making. And eventually have it also as an evidence or as an additional add-on for EPR systems to provide socioeconomic data that comes directly from the informal sector, or that includes that information within the value chain, to integrate them into formal waste management systems. Yeah, being able to prove if they, let's say that's in the second approach, where we are setting up the micro businesses, and they are then selling on their materials further on to recyclers, that we also have the data of who actually collected it in the first place, and where we might be able then to cut out intermediaries and get higher incomes to the waste pickers themselves. And number 3 are financial training and business formalization. So this is, again, also heavily connected to the second approach that I was describing, where this is fitting into the capacity support to do the business registration process, helping with the governance setup, clarification of roles and responsibilities, co-developing dedicated business plans, including the value proposition, cost structure, helping them to have financial management in form of simplified and appropriate profit loss management, cash flow planning, forecasting, and so on, and helping them to connect with potential buyers and partners, especially supporting them in the initial outreach when it comes for setting up those partnerships, negotiating the contracts, and also the last point around branding and communication. Since they're now formal business, helping them to have some basic branding and communication materials, including a simple or low maintenance website. So those are those 3 trainings that so far that we have been implementing, and where I've been seeing also good progress on helping them to professionalize in their businesses, and also the EHS part, for example, helping those micro businesses to have a trust-based relationship with waste pickers that are supplying them with materials, by really, helping them to improve their working conditions, which they greatly appreciate. Yeah, so to summarize, a just transition requires addressing equity and environmental goals together, ensuring there's recognition, investment, and voice. And by investing in people, especially through capacity building, through entrepreneurship, through transition support, EPR can improve waste management while delivering social justice. And I want to reiterate what I said before. I think we should really see EPR policies and the change from a linear to a circular economy as a way where we can use for creating a new system, a socially inclusive circular economy, and not continue with those pathways that we had in the linear economy that is based on also exploiting people, but really making sure that nobody is left behind. So that's, I'll finish the presentation. Thank you so much for listening. I'm also leaving here my contact details, and you can also find us on social media if you want to know more about the work, and look forward to getting to know you now, to understand where you're working, and also to just listen, hear your experiences, and address any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much, Christina. Let me put you out of the spotlight so that we have this shared screen again. Thank you very much for this, very broad but very to the point presentation. There is one question, whether it's possible to get access to your slides. And if you agree, I would just upload them in our chat so people can download them if they want. Is this okay with you, or would you rather send them out yourselves later?
That's okay. You can share it along with the
Okay.
recording. Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much. So yeah, now the floor is open for a discussion. Please feel free to write them in the chat, or even better, open your mic and ask them yourselves. And as I can see, Susanne Karcher has raised her hand. Please step in, open the mic, and also, if you want, turn on your camera and go ahead.
Hello, hi. Can everyone hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm Suzanne. I'm also German, but I live in South Africa in Cape Town. I'm a co-founder of the African Circular Economy Network. And I'm also very heavily involved with e-waste management. And also we're looking at the moment also in what can we do, because in our EPR regulations, there is a provision in the regulations for informal waste sector integration. So I'm busy to develop a report as we speak, alternative income opportunities for the informal sector. But one thing that stands out for me, and I want to find out from you, Christina, you obviously have most of your experience from Asia, is that right?
We also work in when it comes like to our social business programs. I think we probably have a larger footprint in Africa with those informal sector trainings. They are focused on Asia.
Yeah. Because, you know, the one thing we stumble across immediately, and that was a huge eye-opener for me as well, is when I started engaging with our informal waste picker associations, which is African Reclaimers Association and the South African Waste Pickers Association, it was, they are obviously quite strong and they're quite organized. So there's a lot of good lessons to be learned. But, you know, if you look at the composition of waste pickers, there's a lot of people coming from other African countries. And that is a bit of a headache, okay? Because sometimes the informal waste sector constitutes 70% of people like being illegal immigrants. And our government is obviously very strict about this. So looking at all those integration options, it's almost like a no-go. So what are your thoughts about the realities that in the waste picker arena, there are typically 70, 80%, at least in Africa, people that are illegal immigrants. How do you overcome that obstacle? Thank you.
I'm not sure if I get your question, to become the obstacle of having illegal immigrants, because that is not informal sector.
That's what I'm saying. But yeah, if you're planning on good programs to empower, you know, like you go even as far as formalize them completely or put them in the cooperatives or something. All of this had quite limited success. So we're still looking for the golden bullet to strengthen the informal waste sector of people in South Africa. And, you know, the places, people like Arrow or Sapa will be very clear, telling you they will not discern between an illegal immigrant. They provide a voice for all of the people that are working in South Africa as waste pickers. But our governments are quite stuck on this, that any EPR funded programs can only really support South Africans. So we are really in a rock and a hard place. So that's what I try to find out, if you have any experience on overcoming this issue. Yeah.
But like I told to my presentation, I also agree there's no, and I don't think there's ever going to be like a golden bullet, like proof solution that will work to this. Like you need to, because in the end, what you're trying to tackle is informality in the economy overall. It's not only related to the informal sector, to the waste sector, and issues that are related to that. So I think microcredit programs are a proven instrument to help build livelihoods of poor people. I think this I would say is the most proven way on doing that. As I said, the direct employment, the reskilling, they have limitation in terms of numbers of jobs that can be created. And the other way through social businesses, I think this could also be a very efficient way of doing it. But it depends on how many social businesses also do you have available and existing in those countries. And this might require time and also investment to help them grow to a scale that they can provide and absorb again the number of jobs. So in the end, I think it always comes to having a multitude of different measurements on absorbing them, and to have that integrated into your larger strategy for socioeconomic or sustainable development that you have as a country on a macroeconomic level.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susanne, and thank you, Christina. Also, Thierry Sanders raised his hand. Please step in. You just posted something in the chat. Please tell us.
I'll do it in writing and spoken as well. Thank you very much, Christina, for a very good presentation, and good to hear what you're up to. So I have two questions. First one is, yeah, the idea is that EPR funds and fees that have been paid are going to be used for waste management, you know, more collection and more recycling, etc. The problem is that most of these EPR fees and funds and subsidies are usually paid out to recyclers. Have you seen any cases where these EPR subsidies are actually paid out to informal collectors in the form of, let's say, some kind of digital or e-money, e-wallet payment?
To the informal sector directly, no. And I think it would also involve like one of those other approaches that I mentioned to help them be ready to be recognized as a partner to receive those subsidies. I think they need some sort of level of formalization, be it in the form of a micro business, and through which then a distribution could also go down to informal waste pickers that are connected to them through a contractual relationship. But I haven't seen, I think there is, and I think it's in the Prevent Hub. I thought there was one case in Argentina, in La Plata, I think, where there's a waste picker cooperative who has a direct contract.
Right.
I'm not sure what you mean with EPR subsidies, but there are examples where those cooperatives have a contract with the municipality to officially collect waste, which is happening there. And it was also the case in India, in Pune, the example that I presented. That cooperative, they had an official contract to do this in certain areas of the city. And the corporation now canceled that contract and is bringing in like a company with a drug-based model.
Yeah, the kind of system I'm thinking of is, let's say, the corporates, or in India, I think they're called PIBOs, have to pay a fee for every kilo of plastic or whatever they put on the market. So those fees are then transferred to the operators, the waste management operators that are actually doing the recycling and collection. So you can imagine you have three actors in the supply chain. One is the recycler, the other is the aggregator, and at the first mile is the informal collector, that you can actually split those subsidies three ways. One to the recycler for every kilo processed, to the aggregator for every kilo, and the collector for every kilo. So if you have proof of collection and delivery by a waste picker to an aggregator, then it doesn't really matter if they are formal or informal. You can make a digital transfer through a e-wallet system. Yeah, I'm just wondering, I'm looking for solutions.
Yeah. But isn't that already also what you do at Collect? Isn't that what, like, based on the like non-mandatory, like PROs that are being set up voluntarily by the industry, that we already see happening, right?
Yeah, so we are working with this kind of point system. But it's because we have a voluntary payment by a corporate, not under EPR. I haven't seen it happen under EPR yet. So let's say a Tetra Pak can make funds available. We then transfer it to collectors, or in Mozambique, we do it with Coca-Cola and a couple of others, but it's not under EPR. So yeah, it means the PRO would have to make the funds available per kilo collected through an e-wallet or e-money system.
Yeah, you know, I just wanted to clarify what you meant, like with like having a mandatory EPR system, but no, I have not seen that.
No.
But I hope that we're going to see it, and also thanks to the cases that we have proven as cases on the voluntary basis, that it's possible to do it, and especially the aspect of having it digitally documented, I think is where I'm hopeful that this data sort of will drive this in the future, but I have not seen it yet being implemented. Yeah.
Okay, and Dorothy, can I ask one more question about VAT?
Yes, please. Briefly, I already said, please, if it's fine, in order to answer all questions, we would like to extend a few minutes. Thierry, go ahead, and then please. No, it's Heidi Kerber, sorry.
Okay, so the many way that EPR regulations are actually excluding informal collectors in a sort of roundabout indirect way is requiring VAT receipts, VAT payments, or GST, whatever it's called in the country. Of course, they cannot comply with this because they are not able to offset their VAT and they have no formal company. So have you seen this issue, and is there a way to resolve that, or is it a question of lobbying the governments to remove this VAT requirement for collectors?
Yeah, I think it goes both these ways, that you could look at making the policy more inclusive and having maybe also for a transition phase, like some reduction in the requirements for certain players, that this is not required, but maybe there's a different verifying mechanism that they can make sure that, you know, everything else is going as per compliance. But also, again, what I mentioned before, we can also help those informal sector players to professionalize and register them as businesses, where they would then eventually also be able to pay VAT and issue those proofs. So I think working from both ways is the way that we need to address this.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Christina. And now, Heidi Kerber, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Christina. Nice to see you after all these years again. So I was wondering, how was like the reaction by the local government representatives or municipalities if you start to introduce like this different possible pathways? And maybe what was also the reaction by the informal waste workers? Is there anything you could share? Because I realized that, yeah, of course, that there are certain municipal interests, for example, that, yeah, maybe are not well aligned with the new ideas on how to find, yeah, sustainable or socially just, yeah, pathways.
Yeah, so again, like our work is largely characterized that we are working with social businesses who have set up business models in those environments where they're collaborating with those informal sector workers on a day-to-day basis, where this is sort of this is part of their business strategy, why they have created the business for the benefit of supporting them. So for them, it's kind of something very, very natural compared to maybe the traditional businesses who are excluding those. On the waste, when when we are working in context where we are focusing on that second approach of helping to professionalize and do the formalization, it requires a very long lead time for trust building measures, where we often host community events, where we combine this always with giving them direct benefits in their day-to-day work. This can be benefits around protective gear. This can be providing transportation means, anything that eases their work, but at the same time, that also goes into capacity building and sort of preparing their, like their mindsets. And then usually out of those groups, like there are always some leaders that emerge that are very motivated, or that also might have, let's say, like an educated background, that have those entrepreneurial skills. And those are then the ones sort of that have also this self-initiative of saying, like, we would like to do this and that. It's sort of what we are doing is we are more creating the environment, but this, and you cannot go and appoint someone or tell them to do this. You need to facilitate in a process. That's very important, and this can be very time consuming, where you need a lot of patience, where maybe governments or funders, especially private funders, are lacking that patience. And it's very important, to explain like that it's needed, and that it's not like a waste of time doing this community building activities in the first place, leading up for creating such new micro businesses. And often then, once you have done it once, it's sort of like a lead example, and then it's easier to replicate than others will follow. But the challenge is always with getting started in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I made the same experience in a way, but I mean, what is about like this municipalities? Because I mean, you work probably within municipalities, right? So you have like the mayor and other public sector staff. How do you work with them? Or how do you integrate them in the events, or how do you actually link then the different interests?
Not the mayor directly, but of course the concerned municipal officers related to sometimes it's not even waste management. That's often them who are related to development or women specifically. And we involve them in, like presenting our plans and taking on their feedback, also listening to them or incorporating feedbacks from them. There might have been previous initiatives in a similar direction from which you can learn, and then keeping them updated. It depends. Maybe they would join the activities, maybe they don't. It also depends on their time commitments. This can also vary, but it's of course to include them in the design and keeping them updated, and not you need to have them on their side to support you, right? And to not do something that they don't want to see happening in their town, for sure. It's again, it's also like a delicate thing that requires relationship management and building.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you, Heidi, for your question. I think we have to come to an end for today. Once again, thank you very much, Christina, for your presentation and also for your profound answers. Also to our audience for the real lively discussion and great questions. As already mentioned, this is only the first webinar in a whole series. We have already announced 2 more webinars. You can find them in the links I shared earlier in the chat. So please register. We hope to see you soon again next week when we have our next webinar on Friday, February 5th. And here Pact Pro from PRO from Kenya will then report on how they are integrating informal sector in their work. So goodbye for now. We look very much forward to seeing you again. See you soon. Bye-bye.